For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son also to have life in himself. And what do we do with this idea of granting? John tells us that the Father granted to the Son to have life in himself. How can both perspectives be simultaneously true? You understand the dilemma? Carson argues that the best response is that which was adopted by Augustine and other fathers of the church and many Reformed theologians, etc., etc. And that is that this grant is an eternal grant. It is not a point in time. It's not as if there was a moment in time when God granted to the Son to have life in himself, before which the Son did not have life in himself. No, the Son has always had life in himself, and the Father has granted him to have life in himself eternally. Now, how do you wrap your mind around that? Of course, now we can't, right? When you start thinking about eternity, you cannot wrap your mind around it, okay? So in other words, this is an eternal grant that establishes the nature of the relationship between the Father and the Son. Don't ever think of this in terms of point of time. When we start talking about eternal generation, the eternal is the key adjective there. It is not as if the Father existed some time before the Son and that at some point the Son was granted life from the Father. No, 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 no. Okay? That's Arianism. That's all sorts of heresy. This is an eternal grant, because you got to do something with grant here. What does it mean that he was granted life in himself from the Father? So in other words, with this interpretation, again, held historically, we'll see embodied in the creeds, embodied in the confessions, in the 1689 confession, other Reformed confessions. This verse is referring to the eternal generation of the Son. That eternally, and this is eternal past, eternal present, and eternal future, the Father is, has been, always will, this is part of the nature of who God is, granting life in himself to the Son.